I talk with many women who are really struggling with sex around menopause or after menopause. Hi there, I'm Dr. Carol, and if you're a woman around the time of menopause or older, or if you're a man who loves a woman in that season of life, this is something that you probably have been wrestling about. What about sex after menopause? Is it possible? How does it change? Well, the short answer is yes, it is possible. But you know that the seasons of life and the physical and emotional, even the spiritual things that happen as you go through this season of life are different. I talk with many women who are really struggling with sex around menopause or after menopause. You know, some of the women that I talk to as a personal coach, as an OBGYN physician, as a minister, some of these women have been having sex with their husband through their marriage, but it's not been particularly life-giving. It's been something they did more because they felt like they had to. And maybe that's you. Maybe you kind of put up with it. And now around menopause, you don't have the same hormonal fuel to overcome some of the other emotional under the surface things going on. And so now around the time of menopause or after, the whole issue of sex is really becoming a bigger deal. Maybe your children are leaving home or they're out of the home, and this man that you're married to is now getting older, and that adds a lot of other challenges. It's also possible that at this point in your life, you are now becoming aware of old stuff that has been with you for a long time. And just because of where you are, it is now something that you just can't ignore any longer. Old sexual trauma, maybe beliefs, religious beliefs around sex, and it's just not working for you. That is actually very, very common. I have husbands ask me, what's changed about my wife? Some husbands feel like it's kind of a bait and switch when their wife goes through menopause. And it's not because you as a woman are different, but there are some changes. And those changes make the under the surface aspects that impact you as a sexual person express differently. And that can be hard. Now, you probably grew up in a time when talking about sex was it wasn't the thing that you did. Maybe you never had a great way to learn about sex from your mother or other healthy women, older than you, and you just kind of learned through peers or boyfriends and maybe church. You probably grew up at a time when talking about sex in church was not something that you did. Some of those dynamics are changing a little bit now, but it's still not something easy to deal with. So as a physician, an OBGYN physician, and as a minister, I want to say that this dynamic of sex after menopause deserves some special care. And I want to give you a couple thoughts about your physical well-being around sex and sexuality, around your emotional, mental well-being, and around your spiritual well-being, especially at this time of life. Now, there's been a lot of controversy in the medical field and among women about hormones and whether they're good or bad, and bioidentical and prescriptions and all of that. And I'm not going to be able to answer all of those questions in just a brief moment here. But I do want to say that your physical changes that you experience because your ovaries aren't making hormones after menopause affect your sexuality. It affects the ability of you to lubricate with sexual activity. It affects your sexual interest very frequently. The decrease in testosterone as well as estrogen that you experience changes your interest in sex. Now, for some women, your sexual interest can actually increase because there's no risk of pregnancy any longer at all. You don't have to worry about birth control. And so for some women, that freedom actually increases their sexual desire. So whichever direction you go, it's okay. And I do want to encourage you to get a medical evaluation, because if there are physical problems such as, vaginal pain, that kind of thing, there are medical treatments to consider. Also, your sexual response is likely to take longer. It is not that you cannot respond sexually, but the warm-up may take longer. So if your husband is caring and you're able to talk about these things, it's very possible that taking longer in foreplay will actually result in a much more pleasant sexual encounter. Give your body and your mind more time than you may be used to get ready. And that brings us to speak a bit about your mind, the emotional, mental aspects of sex, especially for women. The mental and emotional components of you are all interconnected with everything else, especially when it comes to you as a sexual person. So, unfinished business in your relationship, in your marriage, can make it very tough. If you were married and you're not married now, those memories and the feelings about intimacy can be very complicated. And during your 50s and thereafter, those can become very real. I have some women right now in our Sexpectations course in their 70s who are addressing these things in some ways for the very first time. Again, it may be that you have stuff from the past, whether it's bad messages about sex, religious messages that sex is bad, and that has impacted your marriage through your whole many years, or just the on and off again relationships and going to sex for what sex wasn't designed to give, and you're sick and tired of it, and it's finally time for a change. It is never too late to deal with these things. Spiritually, it may be that at this time in your life, because you see that very possibly from a human perspective, more than half of your physical life on this earth is now past, you're thinking a bit more about the future. And you may be trying to understand more of what God has to say about all of this. And so you're wrestling with, what is God saying to me spiritually? And sexuality is a part of that. I want you to know that God intended sex as a beautiful gift, but that evil has messed that up royally in our world. And Jesus came to bring you freedom and joy, including as a sexual woman. So often, being a sexual woman has meant being exploited in our culture, or using your sexuality to get something, and that was seen as your value. There is so much more and deeper. And it is never too late to deal with those matters in your heart around sex and intimacy and who you are as a woman. Now, I would love to invite you to come to our Sexpectations course, yoursexpectations.com. Remember, I said we have some seniors who are in this course addressing these issues in their life, and I know you can too. Yoursexpectations.com. Regardless of whatever has happened in your sexual story in the past, this course will give you the tools to address your sexual story with honesty and compassion, and find the grace that Jesus offers in dealing with that and finding forward transformation. Yoursexpectations.com. And may God bless you.